I'm David Hart, Executive Vice President at the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to another edition of the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line. Today our special guest is Representative Lake Ray from Jacksonville. Representative, welcome.
Hi David, it's nice to be with you today. We've had some fun earlier today and I'm looking forward to sharing a few thoughts.
Well, good. Earlier today you had an opportunity to speak to some of our guests that are here in town for International Days. And you shared with them a concept you've been working on called moving the market. And I wonder if you could tell our viewers a little bit about that, given that your role when you're not in the Florida legislature is heading up the Northeast Manufacturers Association. What's that mean, moving the market?
Well, thanks, David. It's what it means is, when we talk about the shipping industry, when we talk about what's happening in terms of deepening the ports and moving cargo, the question is where is it going and why is it going there? And it's going to Chicago right now and to Memphis. And the reason being is because I think they've always done it that way. And when we talk about changing and moving the market, it's about we have this great opportunity here in the state of Florida about utilizing all of our ports and bringing things in. And as the markets are changing in terms of manufacturing, it's making things here in the state, bringing them through our ports and distributing them back out of our ports. Instead of doing what we're doing today, which is taking things, moving them up to Chicago, bringing them back to the state of Florida as a finished product, we can do everything here that's being done in Chicago or over in Memphis or Atlanta. It can all be handled right here. Except our opportunities are much greater because we have 14 different ports to choose from, windows on the world. And so it's about moving those markets from where they're going to now into the state of Florida. It's about opportunity. It's about great challenges for changing our economy and broadening our economy. So in the future, when we talk about recessions will not hit us nearly as hard.
Going after those manufacturing companies and bringing them to Florida certainly helps our economy. It helps with job creation, and it occurs to me that fits so nicely with the Trade and Logistics recommendation of striving to double Florida origin exports. So I love your thinking there about moving the market and moving it to Florida. This session you have a piece of legislation, as is often the case, you're sort of a thought leader in these areas, and you have a piece of legislation called the Freight and Logistics Bill, and I wonder if you might share a word or two of what your intentions are there.
Sure. David, what we've been working on over the last couple of years has been the Freight Mobility Plan. If you will, it's a high-level view of what's going on with our freight, things moving through our ports. We tied together with that our manufacturers, we tied together energy, and we tied together different movement opportunities, whether it was ports or whether it was rail or whether it was highway, and even to some degree the air facilities. And so what this bill does is it basically takes all the stakeholders and says, if you're in a particular region, how can we better utilize the facilities and the structure of infrastructure we have through our ports or through rail or highway, and how do we bring that together so that if we have a stakeholder that wants to come in for distributing goods or manufacturing goods and putting together, if you will, a pact or an agreement between multiple cities, multiple counties, so that those regulations, those unnecessary or those burdensome regulations, those other burdensome things that are at a local level can be moved out of the way so that we have a better path for investing as we've started out of the transportation bill that was passed 2 years ago. So that's what it's about. It's about bringing it together. It's about having that opportunity and then ultimately looking towards moving that market from other places to our state.
Appreciate your work on that. And the last area I want to ask you about has to do with a resolution that you and Representative Daniel Davis just filed at the request of the Florida Chamber last week. Several years ago there were trade agreements in the works for South Korea, Panama, and Colombia, and we saw huge economic opportunity for Florida if those agreements could be negotiated and approved. And in the near future, there's a similar opportunity called the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, which would be a trade agreement between the United States and the EU. And I know you've looked at that and see a lot of benefit to Florida. Could you speak a little bit about your resolution?
Certainly, David. I think it's really just this very exciting opportunity. I think, a lot of people here in the state and a lot of people across the country follow the old pattern of isolationism, and where that, we believe that we should be protecting our products. And while we should do things that we can to protect our interest, that opening up those markets provides a two-way opportunity. As we talk about wanting to double the exports out of the state of Florida, then you're going to have double the opportunity. And double the opportunity means tearing down walls and barriers that the state would be faced with. In the state of Florida, for example, it's about $6.1 billion of that which we trade with Europe. It represents about 9% of the exports that we have out of state. And so it's huge and has a huge opportunity. Now that's just the state of Florida. Of course, if we're looking at bringing all these things together and capturing what I believe is our opportunity, it just places the state of Florida in a much, much better position. So it's about free markets, it's about free opportunities for our businesses and for our future.
Well, Representative, I want to thank you for joining us today, for your leadership on these issues. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us on another edition of the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line.